Hey folks, it's Chad here, Airstream of Greensboro, a Blue Compass company, and I'm currently in the all-new 2024 Tradewind. This one happens to have the Fieldstone, and I've been wanting to make a video to show you what that looks like. Of course, I have the other 3 videos on the Terracotta and all the information that you could ever want about the Tradewind. I'll link those below. Make sure you check those videos out if you haven't done so. Now, this video, I'm going to talk about one important update that Airstream did in May. That's very important. I'm also going to talk about whether or not I think, and I'll give you kind of my thoughts of whether or not the price increase that you have for the Tradewind is worth it, you know, against, say, the Flying Cloud. And then third, we're going to talk about front-end separation. I'm mainly going to talk about what Airstream has done with the 2024 model year, and then, of course, those going forward to kind of help prevent front-end separation. That's all I'm going to talk about. I want to do a whole video about front-end separation coming in the future, so make sure you have clicked subscribe, click the like button, click the bell icon, and everything else. Let's get started now. So I'm currently sitting in this beautiful 2024 Tradewind, and I will tell you, I love the Terracotta, but I will say the Fieldstone is really growing on me. Now, Terracotta is very retro, almost like 70s vibe. The Fieldstone is more neutral, and you know, maybe it will stand the test of time as far as critics go when it comes to color. But I really do. I mean, the more I see the Fieldstone, I've sold a couple of these now, and you know, I've been in them. And the more I'm in them, the more I really like this color. Let me give you just a shot of. Now, this is one we're prepping it for a customer that's going to be picking up over the next couple of days, and I'm going to make a quick video talking about a few things with it. But this is the Fieldstone interior. You know, when you choose the colors on a Tradewind, it's very similar to Flying Cloud, where the only thing that's really going to change is the cushion color. So you've got this one here that's called Fieldstone, and then we're also going to have the Terracotta, which is going to be kind of almost burnt orange, kind of fall leaf kind of feel. Now, with the Tradewind, one of the things that we noticed very quickly when they came out with this earlier this year was that in the Victron controller, and I'll kind of move over a little bit, there wasn't a way to reduce the input current from the converter. And I'm going to kind of get technical, and then I'll try to make it simple. But basically, the way this converter is set up, it can pull 30 amps of power, which is probably what, 3,000 watts of energy, and it can put that into the battery. So if you are in a situation where you've got a depleted battery, so this one right now, we were running it during the PDI. One of the things we like to do with our pre-delivery inspections on the Tradewind especially is we like to make sure the battery seems to be working adequately. So they'll do a lot of the PDI just running off the battery with all the AC running and test things that way to try to, just to make sure that the system is working correctly before our customer takes it home. That's something we do. So now I've got it plugged in, so it's getting grid power coming in, plus we've got 300 watts of solar now going into the battery, so we're charging that battery back up so it will be ready for the customer. And you will get a low voltage warning or low battery charge warning. You don't want these batteries to go completely dead. That's not a fun thing to have to try to overcome. If that happens, we have to kind of try to wake them back up. So to kind of go back to the charging part of it, because this inverter also has the converter built in, or the charge controller built into it, I'm going to shut this window because I'm getting crazy light on my face. There we go. Because it can charge at that high input, if you plug this into, say, your 15 amp household outlet, it's gonna try to draw 30 amp. It doesn't matter that it's plugged into 50 amp. It doesn't matter if it's plugged into 20 amp. This can pull 30 amp, and it thinks it's getting 30 amp, so it's always going to try to draw 30 amp. Now, what we found, and a lot of you out there that own a Tradewind will probably put in the comments, yeah, we found that out. We found out pretty quick that you don't want to do that because it can cause some problems. Never mind the fact that it will clip the breaker, but it could cause some other pretty serious problems too. So what we were telling our customers, what basically when they got their Tradewind, was, hey, only if your battery's dead, only plug this into 30 amp. Don't plug it into 20 amp. Don't plug it into 15 amp. Don't plug it into a generator unless it's a 30 amp, a true 30 amp generator, because this sucker is going to try to pull 30 amp if the battery is depleted. Now the battery was fully charged. It didn't really have any problems. We took one to a show. The batteries were fully charged, plugged it in. It kept them charged because it was just doing a float charge, like a low input charge. Now here in kind of a normal aftermarket install with a trade wind, not a trade wind. So say you're not doing a trade wind, like we do a lot of solar and lithium and inverter installs here at our store for our customers. You would generally be able to go in and basically, let me flip this around and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. So normally you would be able to go in to the menu, go into Multiplus, and you got your input current limit here, and you'd be able to tap on that and then make a change. And you could tap it down or tap it up. Now from the factory, Airstream has this locked out, and it's been that way since since they started building the trade wind. And that was the thing, is you couldn't turn down the input current limit from Airstream. And for a lot of trade wind purchasers, that was very frustrating. And I would say rightly so. You were buying, a trade wind because you wanted this technology. You wanted to be able to do, what the 3,000 watt inverter is capable of doing, and so forth. So you wanted that kind of custom ability. The thing about the trade wind is this is for the mass market. This isn't that customer or that buyer who's looking for a true custom install where you're nerding out on it and you're electrical engineer by trade or by by desire, by dreaming. That's me. Like I love this technology. I love this type of stuff. So I'm always looking at it, researching it, thinking about it. But I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't have that background or that training. But if you were one of those people who's like really into this type of system and you're willing to spend the $30,000 or $20,000 that it costs to install this aftermarket, then you want those customability controls. You want to be able to customize it like that. But if you're a customer who's intrigued by the off-grid ability, say the Harvest Host customer, where you're just wanting the ability to be able to spend a night at a winery or to stop at a Cracker Barrel and spend the night, but you're not a Victron nerd, you're not a solar nerd, and this system here looks complex to you. That's a lot of the buyers for the trade wind. I've sold quite a few to that type of buyer that's not their forte. That's not what they're into. So us trying to teach them how to use this system can be challenging, and for them to learn can be challenging because it's not the thing that they're into. So Airstream's having to design this unit, this particular model, for the mass market, not for the select few who can handle that, and they're fine with it. They've been doing research for months. They know all about the Victron, could probably program it themselves. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that that's what Airstream's target was to almost make it dummy proof. And I hate the word dummy, but the phrase, but that's kind of the phrase that comes to mind. Like, it's got to be somewhat dummy proof. And I think locking out that input limit is part of it, because they don't want you to go over 30 either, because the system doesn't have the capability of handling more than 30 amps. If that thing was completely unlocked, you'd have the ability to crank it up to maybe 50 amp, I guess. And then, now you're overloading the system because it's only designed for 30 amp. But the flip side, with how it was originally designed, you couldn't plug it into your household socket to be able to at least get some charge, or to keep the battery charged, or say you're prepping for a camp trip, and like for us, we back it into our driveway. I run a cable into the garage. I plug it into one of the plugs in the garage, not a 30 amp, just a 15 amp plug, and that keeps our batteries charged. We can run the refrigerator, things like that. Well, we were telling customers don't do that because we don't know what's going to potentially happen, and there could be a significant issue. So one of the things that I'm really excited about is Airstream has fixed this problem. Now, they didn't fix it the way that my lithium battery Victron inverter nerds out there won't. They didn't fix it that way, but they fixed it in a way that most everybody, I'll say everybody, can handle. And that is, they added a simple switch to give you the ability to charge the batteries and to run things that are within the battery capacity. So it lowers the amperage. Let me show you how they did it. So I think they did a great job. Of course, you guys are going to tell me what you think in the comments, so feel free to. Let me drop this down here. So now, before we just had this battery disconnect, which is a remote battery disconnect. It's controlled by the switch by the door, and you can manually turn this off. You just want to press it down before you turn it off because it can strip the gears out. But Airstream added, starting in May 1st, so any trade wind that was built May 1st or later is going to get this current switch. So the current limit switch is just telling the system that it shouldn't draw any more than either 10 amps or the full 30 amps that the system is capable of. And it's a simple toggle switch that we're used to seeing in RVs. You switch it up and down. Now, I don't know how it's actually wired on the inside. I haven't even looked at that yet, but it works. So I can flip that down and it's going to kick off the system, and it's actually going to start giving me warnings because our battery is low. But it's going to reduce the input current, as you can see right here. It's lowered it down to 170 watts because it's wanting to protect the system. And we're actually drawing power off the battery right now. Now the other thing that which we wouldn't be able to do right now because I don't have enough battery power, but say you are on a 10 amp current, well, you can run this in a function called assisting. And what that means is the Airstream is going to allow the 10 amps to come in, so you'll get about 10 amps of charge, or 10 amps of, it won't be charged, it'll be 10 amps towards the total out AC load, and then it will use the rest out of the battery. So if you're in a spot where all you have is maybe a 20 amp circuit or a 15 amp circuit, you can plug in, flip it down to 10 amp, which you want to flip it to 10 amp before you plug it in. That'll be key. Flip it to 10 amp, plug it in, and then what it will do is it will use some of your battery energy to actually still run everything. So it'll be pulling, say 20 amps from your batteries and then 10 amps from the grid. So that's something called assisting, which is capable now on the Airstream setup because we have that plug there. Now I want to talk about, if you have any questions on that, throw those in the comment. I'll do my best to answer those. So I want to talk about real quick whether or not the Airstream is worth it. And I think it is. So let me say this. On the subject of, is the Airstream worth the price increase? Yes, if you care about the extra batteries and you care about the Victron system and the ability to boondock and run everything for extended period of time. AC 8 to 10 hours and then everything else for quite a few days, depending on how you're using it and whether or not it's cloudy outside. Like right now, we're drawing 200 watts worth of DC power off of the system. So the system is using 200 watts of DC power, but our solar is producing 321 watts. So a day like today, it's going to cover the draw, and it's going to charge the batteries a little bit, but it's not even going to use the batteries because solar is doing all the work. It's producing all of the energy that's needed. So if you are that person, you're the person who's like, man, I would do an upgrade to a Flying Cloud or to an International to get this capability, then yes, I think it's worth it. Now let me kind of give you my thoughts on that. So one, when you go to build out a Flying Cloud, say it's a 25 foot, it's the same as this one, it's going to be $15,000-$20,000 less than the trade wind because it doesn't have the battery pack on it. Now you can do a couple things. You can get two ACs, and there's a few other options you can do with the Flying Cloud than you can do with the trade wind. And then you come to Chad and you say, hey, thanks for ordering that Flying Cloud for me, but now I want to do a trade wind install. What's that cost going to be? Well, I've priced it out. With the equipment that you get on the trade wind, we can do everything to this trade wind. We can make a Flying Cloud almost identical to the trade wind except for two things. That is the battery setup, because we can't do the batteries in the back. We'd have to do a different style battery. We do those up front. And then two, we cannot do the Suburban recirculation pump system because that requires a lot of plumbing. So that's a trade wind only feature right now as far as double axles go. But we could do the Victron 3000 watt inverter, the Multi-Plus. We could do the Touch 50 or even the Touch 70 touchscreen, the Servo. All of the stuff that's in here the DC to DC charge controller that's up front. We could do all of that stuff for you. It'd be a little bit different, but it would function exactly the same way. We'd install the soft start, all that kind of stuff. The lift kit, we could do it all. You're looking at between, but depending on what you want, you're looking at between $15,000 to $20,000 for add-on. And on top of that, you're pulling your camper apart. So you're gonna have a technician come in and take it apart. Maybe you go to Airstream nuts and bolts, wherever you go. But you're probably gonna spend between $15,000 to $20,000. But here's the kicker: when you come back to say trade that 25 because you decided you want a 27, or you decided you want a 23, you want to go smaller, or even a Caravelle, it's like a 20-foot Caravelle. When you go to get a value on your camper, what you're not going to be able to do is add on the install that you did, all the extra solar, the extra batteries, the multi-plus. You can't, there's nowhere in the NADA book to add that on. And really what happens with the book, and it's very difficult from a dealer's side, it values based on the base price. So no options added, whatever that base price is, that is how it values the camper from the bank side and the dealer side. Now, as a private seller, that's different. A private seller, you could try to add, $15,000 on to whatever used retail is and say, well, I've got a $20,000 solar package and lithium and stuff installed, so that's why it's more. But if you go to trade it, or if somebody's smart and is looking at the NADA book, there's not an option to add 800 amp hours of battery. There's not an option to add a 3,000 watt inverter. And from a dealer side, our banks don't consider that, the banks don't consider that to be an actual add-on. It has to be, it does it based on the base package, however the base package is. So the Tradewind, however, comes with those things. That is the base package. The base package for Tradewind is 800 amp hours of battery, 600 watts of solar, 3,000 watt inverter, a 3-inch lift kit with 16-inch wheels. That's all standard. So when the book goes to value this next year, it's going to value it based off of the initial build, which will include those things. So for me, what I would say as a professional in the Airstream sales world, and just as a basic consumer, if you want to add lithium and you're like, that's my thing, I want that ability, I want to be able to do that, then I would highly recommend considering the Tradewind, because in the end, you're going to get more of your money back when you go to sell it or trade it, because it's going to be part of its base price, because it was included from the start. Like, it was the standard package. If that makes sense. The book's value based off of standard packages, not add-ons or options. Okay. That's something unique in the RV world. In the car world, you can add on that it's got running boards, and you can add on that it's got, whatever you've done to, the truck cover, tunnel cover, you add those things on, and the book will give you a little bit of a value. But in the RV world, it doesn't do that. It's very frustrating both for the consumer and for the dealer. I wish it was different, but that's just how it is right now. So that's something to think about. That's a big part of the reason why I think that it is worth it, because in the end, you're going to get more of your money back because you can justify it in the book. If you come and trade a Tradewind with us, we're going to see the value of the added solar and lithium and stuff, because it's going to be in the book as well. But if you trade a Flying Cloud that has the same package, it's hard for us to include that. And one of the things a lot of times we say when people they trade something in that has that extra stuff on it, we tell our customers, like, hey, you're basically getting that for free, because we can't include it in the valuation because the book doesn't include it in the valuation. So that's my thoughts on the Tradewind, whether or not it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I also really appreciate that Airstream recognized that they needed to make an improvement to the Tradewind, and they've done that. And on that note, if you own a current Tradewind that doesn't have that insert, that doesn't have the switch for 10 to 30 amp, and so you bought it before May 1st, you can have that added. You just need to request it to Airstream. You need to go to your store that you bought it from, or go to an Airstream store and request to have that added, and then we can shoot that up to Airstream warranty. And I would say you probably need to do that pretty quick if you're wanting to do that. My understanding is Airstream will install that based on customer requests. If you want to have it done, then request to have it done, and they'll do it. And then everything going forward, starting in May 1st, we'll have that added switch. And I think that's huge. I'm really excited Airstream did it. I'm glad they did it. So let me pop outside, and we're going to talk a little bit about front-end separation, what it is, and then what Airstream's doing to solve that, or at least prevent that problem going forward. All right, I'm outside. We're gonna talk a little bit about the front end separation, but I want to point out, I've got a trade wind right there. I've got one right there. We have another one on the other side of the shop. That's all going out this week here at Airstream in Greensboro. The trade wind has definitely been, I think, a success for Airstream. Now, talking a little bit about front end separation, the first thing I want to talk about as far as the kind of what it is, I'm not going to go into detail like I said inside. I'm going to try to do a video where I get into more detail about what it is and what causes it, that kind of stuff. Mainly thing I want to talk about today about is just what Airstream has done for 2024. Okay, so Airstream doesn't like to call it front end separation. They'd rather call it frame flex, and the reason is really what's causing it to happen is the frame is flexing, and as it flexes down, it's either pulling away from the camper, so that can cause an issue, or when it pulls down and it releases, it's bouncing up into the front of the camper and causing that issue, and there's not quite enough structure there. I would recommend, I think I said this on the inside, watch that KYD video that Mark did recently going into the cat scale, and there's a lot of good information in there on that one, so watch that. Now, as far as front end separation or frame flex, I'll call it frame flex is what Airstream wants to call it. It can happen to both the front and the back. So with 2024, Airstream did an upgrade to the inner rib system for the whole line. So this actually started, I think, 2022 with the Classic, and then 2023 they added it to the Pottery Barn and the Globetrotter. So they did some testing there, and then in 24 they added Flying Cloud and International. So the whole lineup has this, on the double axles, has this new front cap. And I've talked about it before, where the front cap now, let me flip this around, and now it kind of lines up here better, so there's not quite as much of a curve with the front cap, so it comes up a little bit higher and then turns straight over. There's only going to be one sill line going across where there used to be two to make room for the ducted AC system, and the same thing is going to be true on the back. Now, the other thing that Airstream has done is they've went to an automotive stamped rib on the inside. So they used to use a lot more manual labor to create that inner rib that creates the wall structure. Now Airstream's using an automotive press that is pressing those ribs out. Basically what that means is you're going to have more consistency from rib to rib, so you'll have a straighter wall. Same thing with your roof, you're going to have a straighter roof, and this should be a stronger inner rib. Now, the Airstreams are semi-monocoque. They're built like an aircraft. So the whole structure, everything that's part of the structure is creating the strength in the wall. So the inner skin, the outer skin, the inner ribs, all of those things together create the strength of this wall, which is why Airstream is one of the few manufacturers that they can come down and pick it up from the roof and move it over and set it down on the chassis and it not pull the roof off in the process of doing that. It's very cool to watch if you've ever been to the factory and you're able to see. I'm not sure if you can see that happen on the regular tour for the public, but when we do our training up there as Airstream sales professionals, they let us watch, and we're like right up and close. It's super cool to see it. So let me talk a little bit about kind of where we're seeing the front end separation mostly. It's happening the most when you got a front bed and there's a door here and you've got this thin section right here. So imagine this bar coming across it, coming down and then coming up into the front of it. It's going to push here. It's going to put pressure in this area. And what we're seeing happening is we'll see a bend start right here. And then you might see some rivets pop, those types of things. That you're kind of, what will be the telltale that you have the issue is going to be rivets popping in this area here, or even across the bottom, and then having a dent, kind of pinch looking kind of inner crease right here in this area. That's where you kind of your telltale that you're going to see. It can also happen to the back, even on like a front bed. You can have it happen on the back when you have a hitch on a non-2024. So on the 2024s, Airstream has now approved this hitch that we add, and this one happens to have the hitch added to it, as you can see right there. And so with this new hitch, they designed this hitch in conjunction, torque lift in conjunction with Airstream. It is a 3-inch receiver. It's for bike racks. It's not for towing anything. It's not for hauling anything large. It has a 300-pound weight limit. You cannot install or have anything in total weight more than 300 pounds. They only approve this on the 2024s and newer. And that is because we have some new structure. And I was going to show you in the back. I can't show you on this one because it's a hatch. Let me look at this. Flying Cloud's a hatch too. Man, everything's a hatch around me right now. But you can have the same issue with the back. Let me go back here one more time. So what happens a lot of times when we see the issue in the back, you'll see kind of a crumble right here. KYD did a great video with Vinny, and he talked a lot about it too. So you see like a crumble here, and that's coming from it dragging the bottom here and it picking this up into the actual wall of the Airstream. And there have been people who have added wheels. Don't do that. If you're having the issue with scraping the rear end or scraping this section right here on your Airstream, say it's your driveway or somewhere consistently that you're going to that you're just constantly scraping it, you probably need to get a 3-inch lift kit. That's just the case. And I'll say on the 30s and 33s, like it's almost a must. I think you should just go ahead and plan on spending the $1,500 to $1,800 to have that lift kit added. Okay. Now, what did Airstream do to add in? What did they add to the front wall to make it stronger? And that's a question I get asked a lot. So I'm making this video. I may get in trouble for making this video, so make sure you like it below and subscribe, because I'm risking my YouTube life here. I don't think I will. I hope not, because I think this is valuable information, and I think you guys need to know about it. You at least deserve to know about it. So that's why I'm putting it out there. So 2024, starting 22, and then partially 23. Everything in 24 has it now on the double axle. They've added a new support, and I just happen to have set support right here. Now there's photos of this out on the web. I'd seen it before, probably Airstream Addicts on the forum, something like that. But this is essentially what they're adding to all of the Airstreams 2024 model year and newer, which is what's enabling you to be able to add the hitch to the back. That's part of it. You get 300-pound limit, don't forget that. And then we shouldn't see this issue in the front anymore. Now here's the thing, if you put too much weight distribution on this, you're gonna have this problem. If you have a 1-ton truck and you're just haul butt down the road, and you've got a weight distribution system on there, tighten to the gills, you could still probably bend these too. So I don't know, I mean, it's to help prevent it from happening. The biggest thing is you need to have the right truck for what you're towing with the right weight distribution setup. So that's all I'm going to say with that. Now let me flip this around. So basically what we're seeing now is on the inside, you're going to have this support right here in this corner. That's what Airstream has added for the 2024 model year. And it's going to be on both sides. So there's a left and the right. And that is going to be, basically like that. And that adds that extra support that you need in this front section to help prevent that frame flex from causing an issue. Now the biggest thing is, if you're towing with a big truck, add something like the Gen Y torsion hitch or the AirSafe. I got a 3/4 ton. I love my truck, but it's a heavy truck for a little 25-foot Flying Cloud. So I've got a Gen Y hitch on there to help soften the impact of that big truck towing that smaller trailer. Something also I want to mention, so sway control is a lot of the reasons why we're putting these weight distributions on, and there's a lot of times you don't even need it, especially if you have a truck large enough. Sway predominantly happens from not having your trailer loaded correctly. You want to have 10 to 15% of your total weight of the trailer on the tongue. So if your trailer weighs 6,000 pounds, you want to have at least a tongue weight of 600 pounds. 7,000 pound trailer, when you weigh it at the cat scale, you want it to also have at least 600 pounds of tongue weight. If that is the case, you're going to have, you'll be far less likely to have sway happen on the trailer. And when sway does happen, squeeze the trailer brake, squeeze it all the way, take your foot off the gas, squeeze the trailer brake, and it will pull that trailer back in line and stop that sway. But even if you have a stiff wind, if you've got your trailer weighed correctly you got it loaded correctly, you're less likely to have a sway issue. So this is not a video about how to fix, prevent, or anything like that. This is just talking about what Airstream has added, which is going to be these new brackets right here. And if you have front end separation and you bring it to this store, to Airstream in Greensboro, and Airstream covers the warranty repair to fix it, we're going to install these in your front section there, wherever it happened. I'm not going to install it in the rear, just install it in the front, or if your frame flex, your front end separation happens in the front, we're going to install these in there from the factory. They send those to us to install, and of course, we'll put new metal in the front, whatever we need to do to make that look like new again. I hope this information was helpful. If you found this video helpful, if the information was helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel. That is the best way to support the channel. Even if you're like, I only wanted to watch one video and I'm done because that was the one I bought, still subscribe. It does help the channel. And hope you guys are having a great week. You live riveted, and we'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye.